Welcome to PhD with Women on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Madona Wambua. Topic: Creating the Best Android Application. Episode 88 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my motto, and empathy is critical when you are creating the best Android application. Let me mention a couple of things that's been happening in our world. Let's go back to Charlotte Fuller. She was a guest of our episode before Christmas. We can't wait to listen to our previous PhD guest, Technically Confident podcast. Charlotte podcast will provide stories, tips, tricks, and tools to navigate one's tech career with confidence. Way to go, Charlotte. The Exchange, mark your calendars on February 8th for Netflix The Exchange series, an inspired by real events series about two women who set out to pioneer the cutthroat stock market of 1980s Kuwait. We are excited for this inspiring film directed by Karim El-Shanawi. As inspired by real events, two women set out to pioneer the cutthroat stock market of Kuwait and disrupt its corrupt boys' club along the way. That's like everyday's life. Anyway, let's go to Malta, where I'm streaming today from a lovely capital city, Valletta. And today's news is Annabel Armeni-Cauchi is moving from Malta Central Bank to Malta Financial Services Authority. Congratulations to Annabel on being promoted as Deputy Lead of LSI Supervision within the MFSA Banking Supervision function. Let me talk about today's discussion. We have got a discussion about creating the best Android application. Madona is our guest and she's joining us from somewhere. We are going to learn quickly. Android has been a very popular choice among users, and it's also one of the most widely used mobile operating systems in the world. According to Statista, Android users spend more than 90% of the time engaging with apps and gaming while using their mobile devices. Creating the best Android applications is a lot like baking a cake. You have to start with a base of ingredients that you know will work together, but you also need to experiment and change things up as you go. The best recipes starts with a great idea, but that's not all you need to create an amazing app. In fact, there are many other components that go into building the perfect recipe for your Android application. Our positivity hack delivered guest is Madona, a senior Android engineer, and actually I met Madona during one of our sessions of Women Techmakers. She's Google developer expert for Android and has over 5 years of experience developing Android applications. She is also an author with her first book, Modern Android 13 Development Cookbook. Madona is also a keynote speaker, GDG Lead, Women Techmakers Ambassador, and a host of Tech Talks with Madona, a podcast geared towards supporting women in STEM. Madona, where are you joining us from today?
I am joining from New York, and I am so excited to be here with you today and to be talking to the community about building Android applications.
How did your journey with Women Tech Makers start? That's fascinating to me as one of the ambassadors as well.
Yeah, so my journey actually is pretty interesting. So it started as just me contributing to the local Women Who Code group. And over the years, actually, I thought getting into women tech makers was pretty hard. And I always thought it was for elite people only. I know. And for some reason, a friend of mine told me, hey, how about you apply to the Women Techmakers Ambassador? It's pretty nice. And you can also broaden your reach. And I was like, wow, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And I applied and I got in. And I was so surprised that I got in because I thought it was for elite people only. And here I am today.
Well, let's face it, we are elite people today. We are meeting on PhD Positivity Hack Delivered, and we are going to boost your positivity not only by encouraging you to apply for Women Tech Makers
Yes.
or Google ambassadors or Google experts.
Yeah.
Madonna was actually coaching me on how to apply to become an expert recognized
Yeah.
by Google. And also, we are mostly focusing on Android.
Yeah.
Well, this little phone is operating on Android, and
Nice.
there is lots of users of Android, even though
Yeah.
they are not quite sure how it works. So, Madonna, if you could explain, step by step, why Android and why it is important to know more about Android.
Wow. So I think that actually differs because I'm going to just talk about my story because I think everybody loves their phone because I actually do have a podcast and I remember one of my guests telling me that they love iPhones and they can never look back. So for me, why Android is because it's actually very accessible and it's found everywhere in the world. Like anybody can actually afford a phone that's an Android because when you think about it, it's not expensive, it's accessible, and it's everywhere in the world. As compared to iOS, I know iOS is trying to also bridge the entire world. However, it's still pretty expensive and hard to get or purchase. And I would say to me, I find that to be like a big disadvantage because not everybody can afford an iPhone when you think about it in the world. And an Android, you can easily get one. And when I talk about Android, I'm talking about the operating system because I do know currently my phone is a Samsung. I'm currently using the foldable. I am way too into the phones, so I'm using the foldable. And there are definitely other distributors of, let's say, the phones. Like, let's say, I think there's Nokia, there's Motorola, and others that I might forget, but definitely they most of them use the Android OS, the operating system. And yeah, we can definitely get to the technical side of it later, but that's what I would say. Why Android 2? I would mention that it was also my first phone that my dad gifted me. So yeah, it was an Android phone. It was pretty easily accessible.
Mm, fantastic. Greetings to your dad. I hope he's watching us. We are definitely being watched by Sandra, whoever Sandra is. Hello, Sandra. It sounds like you're a big supporter of Madonna. Sandra, yay, Madonna. She exclamation mark and star-eyed. And we are glad that you are here, Sandra. Hopefully you can chip in and ask some questions or make a comment. Olga Vasina is also in the studio making comments. You are lit, Madonna. Great to see you
Oh,
on Beata's brilliant show. Fabulous. And Jane is here as well. Hello, ladies. Looking forward to this show topic. Jane, I hope you enjoy it and you're gonna learn something with me, because I have to say that apart from I know how to use Android, there is lots of questions I have.
yeah,
One thing I have to mention to you, and we've got Kim Vermaak as well. Hello, ladies, lovely to see you, Kim. Kim is an author of books, and also she's a publisher, so she helps
nice.
females to get into publishing business. I'm glad that you, Kim, joined us today. So, Madonna,
Yeah.
a couple of years back, 2013, 2014, and when
Mm.
I set up my cafe in the middle of Toruń, Kujawsko-Pomorskie, that's the birthplace of Nicolaus Copernicus, that great inventor, great astronomer.
Nice.
We had a couple of meetings. We had
Hmm.
meeting for Android for newbies, and
Wow.
we actually learned how to build these little blocks on
Hmm.
MIT side and
Yeah.
build a little app that with a click of a button would meow at you.
Nice.
So obviously it was like playing with Lego. Obviously
Hmm.
I know nothing about what is behind the nitty gritty of that exciting Android studio. So
Yeah.
if you could tell me or tell us what are the components of Android you have to learn to start playing with it.
Yes. So that's a very broad question, and I think I can break it down to just to where everybody can understand a little bit of it, because I know there's a lot of in-depth details that leads into actually developing an Android application. But a few things that you need to have definitely for fast to build an Android application is you need an IDE, that is an Android Studio IDE. It's pretty nice. It works for developers pretty well. There were other before like Eclipse, but I would highly recommend you using the Android Studio, which is highly recommended for Android developers. Now, for the language that's used to write the code itself, currently it's being advised that everybody use Kotlin, but if you know Java, you're not limited to using that. There are other languages too that you can use based on your needs, but definitely if you want to become a native Android developer, highly recommend you using Kotlin as a language and Android Studio as the IDE. Now, the other part is definitely how the app itself comes together. So we can just go slowly. There are local compose camps that are happening, and when I mean compose is that's the new way of building Android application using the new UI kit called Jetpack Compose, and that one has made work easier for any new developers out there that's trying to come into the industry. Something else I would also want to mention is I don't want to go in depth into mixing people with the architecture, how it's built, because I know that would be very confusing, but definitely would highly recommend, first of all, have the Android Studio, know one language that is either Kotlin or Java, and then you can definitely build your Hello World, which will run on an emulator. So an emulator is like a phone, but a virtual one provided by Android Studio. When you run it, you will be able to test your application that you've built. So that comes with Android Studio. Like you have an emulator in there, and everything is already pre-built for you, so work is made easier for you. Now what you do now is just write the code. So yeah, that's what I would say for anybody new that has never built an Android application. But otherwise, there's a lot to learn in Android.
Absolutely. So, what made you decide to go into Android space and become an engineer in Android?
Wow, always love that question because I have an interesting story. So first of all, I never thought I would be a software engineer. I wanted to become an aeronautical engineer because I really, and I know many people might have heard of this story, but it's my favorite story to tell. I wanted to become an aeronautical engineer because I loved how the planes flew. Like, wow, how are they doing that? How are they flying over us? But sadly, I did not become that. And like I mentioned, my father gifted me a phone, and it was a very old phone. It was kind of like the Nokia 3310, if you've ever heard of those. They were pretty cheap and pretty accessible. And I remember it had a snake game. And to me, I really was intrigued by how the snake game worked. I was like, wow, how did they actually build this stuff? Like, how is it working? So to me, I would say what has driven me over the years is curiosity that has led me to my paths in my career path. So I was intrigued by the snake game, and I was like, wow, what are they using? So I started Googling and trying to find out because I actually went to a cyber cafe to do that. I know that's funny, but I didn't have a laptop. But I would Google like, how are they building? Like, I didn't even know how to do that, but I would just searching and Googling, and then I figured out that they're using a language called Java. And I was like, interesting. And then I wanted to learn that language. And then that's how actually I ended up going to school, doing that. And now here I am building Android applications. So it was that curiosity from a game that led me to becoming an Android engineer.
Right. What's beyond the snake game? I mean, you built some awesome products. Can you tell us what you built and how you developed different applications?
Yes, so my first application actually, I built my first application when I was pregnant with my first child. That is back in 2014, and the application was called Simple Math. The reason as to why I actually built the application was I really wanted to build an app where my kids would use an app without advertising. And it led me into that depth of knowing how Android works, knowing how the architectures come together, knowing how I could build a good app. But actually, I would say so far, so much has improved that building, if right now, building from 2014 and building in 2023, wow, the progress, stunning. I would say Android development has definitely come so far. And that's why actually in my book, Modern Android 13, I talk about how that progress has been so far for me and how I've seen everything work out so good. So I would like to mention this. When I was the apps that I've built so far are that Simple Math and Budgeting Buddy. Budgeting Buddy, I built it when I was in this program that had like 1,000 people. It was a scholarship that I got from Google that helped me build that application. That is through just coaching, 1 year full scholarship program. And then now it has 10,000 downloads, which is super cool. And let me see something else. Now, I've also worked for companies where I've built pretty cool products, but definitely those are owned by my company. Those are different. They're not my own personal projects. But I've definitely worked in cool products that I'm really appreciative of, I would say.
Oh, fantastic. So we have a couple of comments. We've got Jacqueline Gitao. Hello, ladies. Can't wait to learn how to create amazing Android apps. It looks like some of your supporters and Kim is here again. I am not in IT, but curiosity has definitely been a driving force in my career. I
Yes,
believe,
yes.
yes, sister, absolutely. In every body's career, curiosity is
Yeah.
key because without asking questions, you
Hmm.
will be stagnant. You will not develop amazing Android app.
Yeah.
So, one thing we have to think about is I suspect your simple app math
Yeah.
or the budgeting buddy would not work with modern Android, right?
Now, that's a very good question. And I just want to say they would work now. So, one correction though, the Simple Math app, so I built it back in 2014, and there was a definitely poor way of handling the keys. So, what I mean by the keys is that each and every application has a unique key when you upload it to the Play Store. Suddenly, not suddenly, sadly, I lost that key. So, I'm not able to access that application anymore. So, that one got lost and I published it. So sad. But now that process has improved. So that's why I'm very happy about how far Android has come. Now, Budgeting Buddy, however, is actually a project that I took it into my own learning curve. So what I've done with it is that every time Android would have like anything new, I would go back to that project and kind of like implement that new stuff in it so that I can see, am I learning? Because one thing is, if you're signing up to be a software engineer or an Android engineer, you have to sign up to a lifelong time of learning. It's like you're always learning new things. And I've had conversation with friends who tell me that Madonna, this is so hard to keep up because they keep changing things every other day. The APIs are new. But one way that I've always encouraged people is that view it as a challenge and take it up as something new. Because whenever you learn something new, it's fun. So for me, I had a project that really helped me learn new stuff. So I would say Android, not Android. I would say Button Buddy is definitely modern because it's using Kotlin. It's using all the latest Jetpack Compose, and definitely the UI too is modern.
Excellent. That's great. You're moving and you're still looking after your babies. I mean, not just the physical ones, but also
Yeah.
about your products. We have got In Love and in Pain. Wow, another interesting topic. You're an inspiration to those who want to build an Android app. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Absolutely. Madonna is here to answer your question in love and in pain, whatever the question might be. So, Madonna, you
Hmm.
decided to go into Android because
Yeah.
you recognized the various usage and also how many people are using it across the globe. It's very accessible.
Yeah.
But one thing we are always told is the number of screens.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult for many Android users to work on apps that are not accessible to their screens, because
Yeah,
all of a sudden some buttons are disappearing or not even visible on the screen.
yeah. So I think I would say that I think I'm going to tie this back to my previous comment about how far Android has come. And I would say definitely if you want to build a more modern application, please make sure you're following the latest guideline. There are great documentation out there by Google on how to build great application. I also want to mention a plug here for Code Labs. Code Labs are very amazing and perfect. So when I mention Code Lab, I mean if you're trying to build an Android application, just Google Android application code lab, or let me just rephrase that a little bit. That might be generic, but if you're trying to build something, let's say you want to work with Work Manager, for instance, in Android, you can just search Work Manager code lab, and definitely you'll see that code lab in Google, like just the browser, and you'll be able to see step by step how you can build this. Now, I'm gonna plug another one, which is Jetpack Compose. Let's say you I
Alexa
know, always
is
listening to
trying to
us.
answer. Well, let's start
That
again.
is so funny. So definitely, I would say if you're trying, oh, I think Alexa responded because I said search. So if you're trying to find something unique, definitely just go and say Jetpack Compose Code Lab, and you'll find great information on how you can build your applications using Jetpack Compose, the new UI toolkit. I also want to plug in that be patient with the process. It's never easy, especially for somebody new, because you might see so many information about, hey, there's XML. Should I be using XML? Should I be using Kotlin? Should I be using Java? I would say if you pick up one language, I think the rest become easy to learn. So be kind on yourself, pick up one language, use the latest because definitely the latest is what's going to be selling in the near future. Definitely knowing the old is not bad because you will definitely maintain legacy code, but definitely knowing the latest is good because that's where we're moving towards. The legacy code might still be there, but definitely new features are being built new. Like for us right now, we're building new features using Jetpack Compose. We're not using the old way of doing things, which is using XML. So knowing the new is good. And I also believe once you're in the code base, when you know the new, knowing the hard is not going to become very hard. It's going to be easier.
Excellent. We've got a comment from IPOVIT. That's my personal husband. Oh, ladies, Kim and Madonna. I could not agree more. Stay curious. What does this button do? As Fisher Price Activity Center encouraged a generation to inquire.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I wanted to ask you, Madonna, about using the latest language, and
Yeah.
also about having this opportunity to apply for jobs, because
Yeah.
does it mean that if somebody is using or asking for programmers to be able to build Android application in Kotlin, but they are using Java, can they still apply for that job?
Yes, of course. I mean, if you're using Java, you can definitely apply for that job. So one thing is that everybody knows for a fact that you just don't move from Java to knowing Kotlin in a day. So many companies that I actually applied for when I was looking for a job, they all allowed me to kind of like just come in with my Java knowledge and then switch to Kotlin slowly because it's always a learning process. So yes, I would say go for it. Companies are very welcoming, and they also understand that it's a learning process. And also Kotlin is a pretty new language too. So they're always welcoming too. And something else that I forgot to mention before in my previous comment about also this button doesn't do what it should do. I just want to make sure the comment about reading the documentation is pretty out there, well heard, because that really helps a lot. There's a lot guidance on material design and also how you can build great latest application, how you can make sure that your app works pretty well in all the sizes now. There's complete documentation and everything. So in short, my answer is everything has become much easier because the documentation is way advanced and way catering for everybody. That is for beginners, intermediate, and experts.
So before we are able to buy your book,
Yeah.
and because it's coming in, I believe, in
Yes.
April, May.
Yes, it's around the corner.
Excellent. You can actually buy it now, pre-book the beautiful book, cookbook for Android application from Madonna. It's available on Amazon right now.
And Barnes and Noble.
There you go. So, and also you can listen to Madonna's podcast. But before you search Madonna's podcast or any answers on Android, let's ask Madonna today
Mhm.
about the Android. And also, I was going to ask you about what is Android better than other applications? I mean, iOS and so on. What is it good for, and what are their foibles?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to address this particular question like a developer, and that is say, because I know when I talk about this question in form of a user, that's going to be different. It's going to vary for everybody. Because I know, like I mentioned before, a friend of mine likes iPhones. I feel like I find it hard to use an iPhone, and I feel like it's because I've always used an Android. So that would definitely be different, and it will be based on preference. But for let's say engineering, when if you want to become an Android developer as compared to an iOS developer or an iOS engineer or an Android engineer, I would say definitely what you're going for is the market reach. You will notice that the market reach in the community of the Android developers is worldwide. That's why when you leave here and go to Germany or go to Malta or go to any other place in the world, you'll find Android engineers. I'm not saying iOS engineers do not exist, they're definitely there, but there are many Android engineers because, as we mentioned, even I think Bita mentioned before that statistics shows that almost I also read a statistic a report recently that almost 87% of users around the world are using Androids. So that's one of the major reasons why you should develop for it. And also Android developers are always on demand because again, there's so many devices using Android. iOS, if I'm not wrong, by Statistica, that was back in 2019. That's the research. And I think maybe it's not, I don't think it's drastically changed, but it was around 13% using iOS. So based on that, you can definitely say iOS, but there is a downside where when you're building for Android, you have to be ready to face multiple issues, which is every device is different, yeah. So you'll find different bugs that are there on Samsung that are not there on, let's say, Pixels, which is pretty sad. But we thrive in that because then that's how we get to have a wider community where we can talk about stuff like that. And also, there's so many conferences for Android around the world. I might be
Hmm.
biased here, though. I feel like I'm being biased.
Well, there is one downside,
Yeah.
disadvantage of using Android. Apparently, it uses a lot of data, and it is quite heavy on internet. Is that true?
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I wouldn't say I'm 100% sure about that. But what I would say is that definitely that might be true. But there are ways right now in actually Android 13 that we're trying to, as Android developers, we're trying to make sure that our applications kind of like cater to that particular issue where even the download size goes smaller, even the let's say the battery usage also make sure that the way we are building our applications, there are strict guidelines that help us developers so that we don't strain the battery of phones because I do think one of the reasons as to why that might happen is because everybody's building their own apps and all these apps are being downloaded in your phone and sometimes some developers might not follow the right guidelines because that happens from time to time and that might strain your battery because they might have some background work. When I talk about background work, I mean like let's say this application is uses let's say a downloading feature or let's say you upload pictures but then it doesn't stop its background work that's such that it's still reading or still doing some processing in the background, that can definitely drain your application. So if we as developers learn how to handle such cases well in advance, I think that will definitely improve the way applications work in the Android system. So I would say, yeah, you might be right about that based on how each and every developer builds separately and
Well,
makes it
mm,
interesting. Yeah.
yes, well, I hope there will be a way to use some of the data offline,
Yeah.
just like we are able with some of the documents on Google, for example, using the
Yes.
documents offline. Anyway, your cookbook is almost finished. What's the selling point? How would you encourage our viewers to buy it?
Yeah, so I think I would tell our viewers is that what I would tell our viewers is that in this cookbook, it's a cookbook. It has over 80 recipes. So you know what that means, right? So it means I'm breaking down each and every aspect of our let's say Jetpack Compose. I'm breaking it down in little recipes where you can create simple apps. So it's pretty friendly to beginners and intermediate. So you're able to log in there, get the book, kind of like just read through, write a project. And if you like books like me, I think I actually have my collection here of books. I'm just gonna bring them on. If you're, I'm still the book buddy person. So like this is my January read. I know I had to do this. So this is my January read. So I've already finished this book, and I'm gonna finish this ones. So if you're still a book person, I definitely encourage you getting a technical book too, and following it through.
Serial bookworm Madonna recommends lots of books, but let's go to our favorite question. Um, if is there a number one book that you wish you read before you started your career?
Now that's a very amazing question because I just read this book. Oh my goodness, I just read this book recently. Actually, I bought this book on Saturday and I finished it on Sunday. I was so eager to finish it because it was so good. And the reason as to why I love this book and I wish I got it way before I started my career is because it has proven ways of how actually you can have great habits that leads to a successful career, even a successful life in both ways. So I would highly recommend reading it. I think to me it served the purpose and it's good. It's great. I love it. And also one thing that also it stamped on my head is that everything that I've been saying to myself, the little practices I've been doing myself, they were there. And I was like, wow. Like one thing I normally tell my friends is that I'm not a procrastinator. If I'm gonna do something, I have to do it. Sorry.
Mm, excellent.
So the
So it's
habits, they're there.
uh, tiny changes, remarkable results, atomic habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones.
Yeah.
What are bad habits of Madonna?
Well, so what is okay, so my bad habit is one that so a friend of mine actually told me something very funny that I'm that person when we go for vacation, when we come back, I will unpack the same day. I'll throw everything on the washer and then I'll fold the clothes. And then I realized that's a bad habit. I think when I come from a vacation, I need to rest. I need to relax. I can do that the next day. So, perfectionist was my biggest bad habit, but I've learned to stop doing it. Like, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be good. Like, yeah, let it all go.
Oh my goodness, I wish I had a good habit of unpacking my stuff when I return.
I was
So
always
it's a
unpacking
matter of,
fast. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was always unpacking to the washer. So you get what I mean? Like I want to make everything good. Everything has to be tidy. It has to be perfect. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a bad habit. I need to stop that.
Well, my habits are so bad that my husband is helping me packing because I hate packing, I hate unpacking. So that's done. That's my good habit to have a good husband.
I like that.
Let's say that. So, your book is
Yeah.
about good habits. What about your life lesson quote?
Wow. I That's interesting. I am not a quote person because actually it's so funny. This book read my mind because I'm not a motivational kind of person. I don't have any quotes that I keep by. I do, however, have a book that I was gifted by Women Take Makers that has the quotes of by powerful women. And I wouldn't say I have any quote on mind, by the way. I'm so blank on this one. So yes, to be honest, I am not like the book. This book says, don't be a motivational kind of person because sometimes they don't work. So I'm not a quote person. But if I was to have a quote, I would say, if I was to have a quote, this is different. I would definitely say, no sisters left behind. That is my quote, my to go to quote.
And how does it change you? Why is it important to you? No sisters left behind.
Yes. So why no sisters left behind to me means that, look, in the tech scene and most of the STEM scenes, we don't have so many women. And I feel like if you're a woman and you're already in the field, you can bring other women because there is an issue of retaining women in tech and also in other field of STEM. So definitely to me, I want to make sure that no sisters are left behind. That is motivating each other, not through motivational quotes, but definitely through talking about, let's say, how if things are not working for you, what can work? Like just looking at that break point or middle point where we can all meet each other and say, look, I have been doing this for maybe over 5 years. It has not been easy, but I've found my sister group that helped me. Like I found a, a a community that actually supports me. So that's what I want to say. There are communities out there that are willing to help and are ready to help, and actually with other women in tech too. So definitely no sisters left behind means let's swim, get each other's hand, and hold each other's hand and support each other.
Well, if we are talking about you being helped, who is the number one person that you remember that helped you in your career?
Wow. These are pretty good questions. So I think I've had great cheerleaders. I like to call them cheerleaders, people that cheerlead for me. And I always try to make sure that I do the same. So I've had great friends that have really cheerleaded for me. That is through opportunities, through chances that I've seen, through things that I see, and they say, hey, I think Madonna would be good for this. That is, and then people reach out to me and I'm like, hey, Madonna, I heard your name being mentioned here. And I'm like, wow, thank you. That is amazing. So definitely I say, there are great cheerleaders out there. And to me, I cannot even count. That's the problem because I have so many of them that cheerlead for me. So I cannot pinpoint and say just one person, but definitely have a great support system. Like, for instance, I can talk about this situation. Back in 2011, um, Anita B is pretty big and it brings women in tech together. And a friend of mine was like, hey, I really want to give a talk at Anita B. And I was wondering if you could be in my panel. And I said, wow, that's interesting that you thought of me. And then she brought us together. We were like four women. And to me, I thought that was pretty cool because she brought us to an opportunity that we actually got. We gave like a senior talk at Anita B, that is Grace Hopper Celebration. And that was to me rewarding. Just somebody pulling you in their plans and thinking you can do it. Because I mean, she's huge. She works for Morgan Stanley as the vice president. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Why not? So yes,
Fabulous. We definitely recommend Anita B organization as well as Grace Hopper celebration because Admiral Grace Hopper was amazing.
yeah,
Not just by name Amazing Grace, she was called, but also by what she achieved. And since we are talking quotation, her quotation was, a ship in a port is beautiful, but that's not what ships are built for. It's
yeah,
talking about the comfort zone, talking about being curious, exploring new seas, and learning as we go. Right, since we are talking quotations, we have got a quotation I like to use quite often.
mm,
Eleanor Roosevelt once said, women are like tea bags. We don't
Mhm.
know our true strengths until we are in hot water. So, question to you, Madonna, in life, how are you in hot water? How are you brewing?
Well, I think so far you can judge by my actions. When I'm in hot water, how I brew is calm, but maybe my husband will not say that. But I think I'm always very calm, and I take everything as a positive intent. I do not assume any negative intent, and I've always viewed everything in life firstly with a positive attribute. I think that has helped me a lot in my career. And I don't know if I was born like that or it's something I've practiced over years. I kind of like always wonder where that comes from, but definitely I'm a positive person. So if I was in hot water, I would definitely scream because it's hot water, but scream not very loudly. Like, definitely be happy. Of course, I know I'm burning, but hey, but maybe hot water was not the one good one. But I pictured the scenario where I would be definitely working and then I'm in hot water in that kind of scenario. So I'm always calm and pick it positive way.
Absolutely. Look for something positive in
Yeah.
each every day, even if some days you have to look harder.
Yes, and actually that's a very good point that you mentioned because somebody asked me, are there not days where you're actually sad? Because at work, I remember my previous companies, my manager said my biggest superpower was never being mad or never being sad. And I was like, wait, I've never been said, yeah, you're the most positive person we've ever worked with. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's a good compliment. I was like, huh, I just don't see anything to be mad about from time to time. I don't know. Even though
Mm,
sometimes I might be sad for sure, but I always want to make sure that the sad doesn't get the good of me. And that's what I'm telling my kids too. It's okay to be sad, but don't let it overtake your emotions. It's okay. Feel sad, definitely, but try to see how you can smile at the end of the day.
beautiful. Try to see how you can smile at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We are heading towards the end of our show because Madonna has to run short today. What is your strategy for problem solving, Madonna, apart from looking for positive outcomes?
Yeah. So my strategy is definitely it has to depend. So I can talk about Android in Android development here, just tying this talk back to Android development is my strategy is first of all, if I get a ticket today, that is if you're an Android engineer, you definitely work in an agile environment, which means you're given tickets and then there's a sprint. So definitely the way I problem solve is I look at the ticket, I write down what needs to be done, and then I start looking at how can I break this problem down. If it's too complex, I try to see if I can check if I pointed it correctly or if it was pointed correctly. But if it's something that's pretty easy, definitely go ahead and do it and you're done. But if it's very complex, I break it down, write the things that I can do. Also trying to make sure that I'm tying myself into the right time because remember, sprints have 2 weeks and you're definitely expected to finish your work within 2 weeks. So writing down, trying to see how I can solve it step by step. And if it takes me longer, I reach out for help. And if it's something that none of my team members or maybe I need to reach out to my senior engineer, definitely do that. But other than that, I always write down every step that I need to do or accomplish, and that has been helpful. I think it's also that tip is also actually spoken about in the book where you write down the art of writing down. It's pretty cool and it's pretty powerful. And let me not lie to you, I don't write on notebooks. I used to love notebooks, definitely have a lot. Let me show you. But these days,
Mm,
I have found it much easier to just write on Google Docs because it's automated and it's just there, it's saved for you and easy to keep track on. So I have like an Android engineer doc where I write all my reviews, all my stuff, my ideas, my talks idea for 2023. I'm just giving my tips out there.
excellent. Thank you so much for tips. So, are you writing physically or are you dictating to Alexa so she takes notes for you?
I'm writing physically, like go into the Google Doc and type it in, because I've not found a good thing to kind of like dictate the right because you know maybe it's my language, but I normally find it easier to just type it down myself.
I know
Yeah.
there is always a language barrier and accent
Yes.
barrier for all these apps. I recommend Otter. I don't know whether you have come across it, but
No.
actually, it is working quite well. There you go. I give you my tip of the day
Cool. I
today.
like that. Wait, it's Alta?
Otter, like Otter. It's
Oh,
been
yes, I've heard
one.
of this. Oh,
Yes,
cool.
definitely recommend that, girl.
No,
Anyway,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Cool.
So, Madonna, you're senior engineer. You've been through junior engineer, you've been through career path. What advice would you give to females to help their career or start an entrepreneurial journey or start writing a book?
Yes, I think I would say I know this one actually might work for other people and might not work for others. So mostly, I just want to tie everything back to just my experience because I feel like sometimes things work for others, sometimes things don't work for others. But I've learned that having a mentor in the early stages of a career is very important. It really helps a lot because to me, that was very helpful. I didn't have a mentor in the beginning of my career. It was pretty hard. But when I continued growing, I started looking for mentors and then I found a mentor and everything was much easier. And what I mean by mentor is sometimes you might want to ask a question that maybe you might not feel very comfortable asking your colleagues all the time. And rephrasing your question to your mentor might really help a lot. And also asking your mentor to track your progress, like how you're progressing, like is your career progressing, for them to give you like that honest feedback. So to me, I would say definitely find a mentor and always be open to learning. That's very important. I think learning, being open-minded is also very important, and it's a key way of being successful in this career because it's not easy, especially when the review times comes. Oh my God, that's not going to be easy.
That's
Yeah.
not going to be easy.
Nope.
So, what's the review process for Madonna? How do you prepare for that?
Yes. So how I prepare for my review is first of all making sure that you have your brag doc. I have mentioned this before. And a brag doc is a document that you create. Again, like I mentioned, this day I enjoy writing on my Google Doc. So you can create a Google Doc of things that you've done, talks you've given, things that you think were wins actually at your company that you're working on, and then those are things that you will use to write during your review time. You can say, for instance, I finished this ticket, I helped particular this, I push this product, I launch this product. You have to keep track because time goes so fast that if you don't keep track, you'll forget. And I know many other people have mentioned this too, but I think it's a proven concept. That's why it's good to just keep repeating it. Sometimes even the book, today I feel like I'm just going to mention the book. So even the book says that repeated consciousness is very important because it helps a lot. So me repeating this, even if you've had it before, might be very helpful because if you're not started doing it, you need to start doing it. That is creating a doc where you can keep track of all your wins, all your talks, everything you've done within the year, especially because this is January, right? When we reach August, if you didn't keep track of all the things you've done, you will not remember. I will not remember I was in this talk today because we have so many things going on. But if I remember this talk,
There you go. Positivity hacks delivered, Madonna, in January 2023. That is the positive outcome. So that's also a very good point, Madonna, you're
yeah,
making, because quite often when we need to lift each other or up or find a good positive thing, we can flick through these pages and
yeah,
see and notice what you have achieved. That's
yes,
one thing that I'm telling my daughter, how far she's gone,
yeah,
how many things she's done, because we keep forgetting about our, you know, fame to claim, and
yeah,
we forget about their root. It's the process that is quite important, that makes
yes,
us the successful person we are today. So, Madonna, we are thinking about pandemic, it's over, and we are thinking it's going to be kushti from now on. But imagine that you can invite any person in the world to have private breakfast anywhere in the world. Who would you invite and where would you invite that person?
oh, definitely. I would invite Michelle Obama. I would invite Michelle
Michelle.
Obama for breakfast because,
Excellent.
yeah, she's such an inspiration to me. And I just love everything about her and how she maintained her grace and everything. And definitely, I would not at Starbucks. I know she would not come to my house because, or maybe she would. You never know. But definitely in a cool restaurant, I would invite Michelle Obama for breakfast.
Okay, cool restaurant in New York or
Yes, yes, in New York.
oh,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. You've got to tell us, give us a hint. Which restaurant is a cool restaurant in New York?
Wow, there's so many. It's so hard to pick, but definitely, let me see. I mean, oh my God, how do I pick this? There's so many cool restaurants in New York, but definitely I would I don't know. I don't want I that one. I'm blank on that one because there's so many cool of them, and I feel like so. The one that I like so much because it has a pretty beautiful view. I think maybe she'll say this is very like 20s and 30s. Like
Mm,
but definitely I would invite it to Westlight, New York.
excellent.
It's pretty cool. It has a nice
Mhm.
view, but maybe would in the morning they sell coffee. I don't know. But that's my favorite restaurant.
Beautiful. Madonna, thank you so much for being with us. I know that you have to run, so we'll let you go. Now, our guest was Madonna, and she talked about Android. If you want to catch up with her, you can listen to her podcast as well as pre-book her Android book. Next week, we are going to talk about how to cultivate innovation with Amazon Web Services. Our guest is going to be Tasha Penwell. And that's all from episode 88 PhD Livestream. Thanks to our guest Madona Wambua. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Woman on IT and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. As we know, next week we are meeting at 6 p.m. CET, midday EST. And if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude, Maya Angelou says. Today is your day to hack the future. Hack the positivity you want. Thank you.